Hello everyone, it's Kylie. This video is a little bit different to what I normally have, which is a flip through of journals. These aren't journals, obviously. They are antique shabby chic items that I've created, and I just thought that I would come on and show you what I have made and also how I've made it, and sort of have a little chat about that. So they are both snippet rolls. Snippet rolls are great to make when you have a lot of bits and pieces left over from craft activities or creation. So this is my little snippet basket, and I'll just very quickly empty it out and show you the kinds of things that I sort of keep. Because I think everyone's a little bit different. So I keep anything that I think is big enough in size to actually either put on a snippet roll or use maybe on a tag or a journaling card as a little tactile element. So I'm just going to shove those back in. There's no actual system for this. It is literally just layered depending on what I've made. So sometimes I will get things out of here, but sometimes I will also have larger things left over from making a journal, because I do use a lot of fabrics. I do a lot of machine sewing, ruffles, pockets, tuck spots, etc. So the first one I'm going to show you today, I've made a little pouch for. So I've made this pouch out of a vintage doily, and I decided because it was sort of the same shape as this doily, I was just going to sew it so that the edge bits sort of filled out to the side, but changed my mind. So I sewed it inside out and then just turned it in the right way. You could actually unpick this and use it on a journal if you wanted to. Now, to me, when I sewed that button on, that was in the middle. And now I see it and I think, no, that's not the middle. But anyway, that's just how my brain seems to. My brain is very systematic, but it's definitely not central or centered, I should say. So anyway, that's a gorgeous vintage glass button. There's something that I do like to collect, and I have used quite a few in these projects. So I'll just unravel that and give you a little sort of peek at it. I think this snippet roll might be 60 or 70 centimeters. I will measure it, but for me, the first thing I start with is a backing fabric, and I just had this tea stained. It's a modern eyelet fabric, and I have sewn 2 strips together to make the length that I wanted. So that's how I sort of start, and then what I do is I cut up all of the beautiful bits of lace. There's antique and vintage lace, and I sort of have them in piles, and I sit at my sewing machine with this the right way up. I'm not sure if it is actually the right way up, because it doesn't really matter. It is only the backing fabric, but you still see little bits of it through the lace, so that you sort of need to keep that in mind. But I have just used a straight machine stitch. I back stitch at the very start, because even though you might cut these up to make pockets or ruffles down the side of a journal, I don't want it to undo until the person buying it has made that decision. I also really love to use these to edge a shelf in my craft room, or a chest of drawers in my craft room, or in the house if you're allowed to have shabby chic outside of your little space. I'm not. So mine is a very concentrated form. So that's another way you can sort of add a little shabby element to your space. But I literally start machine sewing a piece of lace on, and then I just, as I'm going along, I just grab seemingly randomly, but my brain does work quite organically, systematically in an organic way. So, and it doesn't really matter if you have two of the same lace next to each other. Yeah, unless you're me and like to space things out. I don't know. That's just how I am. So I just sort of randomly grab bits of lace and keep on sewing, and I layer it, you know, big pieces, smaller pieces, all the way along. And I keep going until the end, and then I do a little back stitch. So the first layer is the backing fabric. The second layer are the pieces of lace. And just sort of cut them to whatever size you feel comfortable with. Then I like to add features. So I do obsessively collect gorgeous vintage glass buttons, and you can see little flowers on there. That has sort of a mother of pearl sheen, that has some gold on it, that has another sheen. That's a fabric one that was handmade. So I have hand sewn those sort of spaced along the snippet roll. And then the last thing that I've done is hand stitched some hearts. Well, wonky hearts. I've hand stitched some wonky hearts in some really beautiful vintage gold thread just between the buttons. If your brain allows you to be a little bit more random than mine does, then you know you can do whatever you want. I was going to also embroider some words, but I felt like there'd be then too much going on. But another thing you can do is embroider on a separate piece of fabric, sort of torn fabric, and then sew that as you're sewing along. That's an idea I had after I finished these. But this is one row of machine stitching, so there's a lot of movement to the lace and would probably work beautifully for like a ruffle or a pocket, you know, if you didn't mind these bits sort of flopping down a little. So that's what it looks like with just one line of machine stitching. I'm just wrapping that up so it fits back in its little pouch, and I'll pop that in. In terms of the closure, I did cheat and just cut a little space for that button to go through, because that is part of that sort of shabby look. So that's a nice gift idea for someone who loves shabby chic. The other thing, the other snippet roll I've made is very similar, but there's one difference that I will show you. So this one I have wrapped around with this cute little button, glass button closure, an antique bobbin from a textile factory. So this is in its original form, and I haven't altered it because I think, you know, some people really love that aged patina. You can actually paint with chalk paint's probably the best one, because you don't have to prepare the timber, and it sort of shabbies up a bit better. So you could make it lighter and sort of shabby chic it, which I have done. I have done for some. I'll just grab one and hopefully not make a huge noise or mess. So I did shabby chic some. So I've done a little bit of painting and sanding. So that's sort of what you can achieve with a little bit of chalk paint. So you can see that it's a very different sort of look to it. And I'll unroll this snippet roll just to sort of give you an idea of what it looks like. But with this one, I've done the same thing, except I've done 2 rows of machine stitching. So instead of just down the middle, I've done one down one side. So you can see that some lace hasn't been caught by that second row of stitching. But in doing that, you have less floppiness and less movement of the lace in the actual snippet roll. So I'll just unroll this and show you what I've done here. And that is the antique timber bobbin. I got that from a second-hand shop near my place of residence, and it's not something that I can link in the description box. That's just a, you know, I am quite jealous of people living in Europe, the US and the UK, because you do have older things in more, and you have more of them. In Australia, it's actually a little bit hard to find antique things like that that aren't like ridiculously expensive. Okay, so with this one I have done the two machine stitches. I've also used some really gorgeous antique glass buttons, but I've done the little hearts in a slightly different way because this one is longer. I think it's about 90 centimeters, and I have used some different laces and little Suffolk puffs. They're vintage, but they've had the back cut off and just sort of that teased, so they're not as bulky, I guess. So you can sort of see that it's very similar but different in its own way. And with these sorts of things, I guess you can make them smaller if you wish. And I've actually used this lace to make little ruffles along the length of the snippet roll. So there's another little ruffle. Yeah, so that's just another way that you can do a snippet roll. I've just got to make sure that I wind this on so the hearts are up the right way, because that's about presentation. Yeah, so they're two things that I've sort of been making lately. I'm working at our pharmacy. We're short-staffed, critically short-staffed at this point in time, so I've had to step in and do that. So there's less time for my little crafting business, but that's just how life is, and we just push on, don't we? Multitasking, us ladies. And, you know, no offense any gentlemen who watch my channel, but I've come to find that it is a unique skill, mostly I'll say, to the female kind, especially when children are involved. So that was a little aside. Yeah, so lots of fun, just something that's not as sort of it's as labor intensive as you make it. I did do the hand stitching and I stitched on the buttons myself, but I just had a lot of fun doing something a little bit different to a journal. But these can of course be used in a journal. I am yet to make myself snippet rolls to use in journals, and I keep thinking, like, with my basket of things, it is literally right near my sewing machine, and I just think, just do it. So there you go. Just do it. Make yourself a snippet roll out of all of your bits and pieces and it will look gorgeous. Anyway, thanks for watching and happy crafting. Bye.